So Tina,
Yes,
can you help me? Can you convince me why I should be doing evaluations at my company?
absolutely. I think the
Okay.
most important reason that you should consider doing evaluations are finding out where the bottlenecks are in your company and
Hmm.
giving folks stretch goals so that you can enhance and increase your productivity and your employee morale. And that
Okay.
sounds like a
Let's.
heavy lift for just a formal process, but I would argue that it doesn't have to be quite as stiff and formal, and it doesn't have to be daunting, and it could
Okay.
have a huge payoff on your bottom line.
Okay. Great. So I love the highlight of bottlenecks. We've talked about
Yeah,
them.
me
We've
too.
talked
Yeah.
about constraints.
Yes.
Typically, when people think about evaluations, the first thing that comes to mind is compensation. I'm
Yes.
going to have a conversation. They want a pay increase. And people avoid those conversations or they try to do them not as regularly so they don't have to give a promotion or whatever it is. So maybe it's that we have the wrong perspective. You just talked about how they don't need to be as rigid and formal.
Right.
What does the ideal evaluation look like in your eyes? Can you paint the picture for us?
Yes. In my eyes, an ideal evaluation doesn't have to be a formal sit down. It can be a quarterly or monthly touch base, finding out,
Okay.
asking questions to your employees like, what are we doing that's working really well? What are things that
Mhm.
we could do better? And are there any things in your way that I could do, any barriers that are keeping you from being the most successful that I can kick out of the way for you? That
Gotcha.
will
So that,
help you identify some really key points that you can take action on immediately that
mm,
that will increase morale, and it builds that trust with that employee in a way
yeah,
that money cannot.
for sure. No, that's great. So that when you say that, that sounds to me more of like a one-on-one.
Uh-huh.
Like in my company, that's my direct reports. I do a one-on-one with them, and I do that weekly.
Yes.
I would think meeting monthly would I'd probably be missing a lot of information. So um, why why do people think of evaluations, or maybe even myself? Why do I think of evaluations as more of a formal thing versus a one-on-one?
Because you're looking at it to assess the full year in review.
Mm,
And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to evaluate this person. And what most often happens is the leader or the manager or the supervisor, they keep a list of all of the things that have irritated them throughout the year. And so they take it as it's their point of contact with that employee where they bash them. That's why employees hate them. And they may have never spoken to the employee about any of the issues that they're saving up to sabotage
mhm.
them with. And that's exactly what it feels like. I'm being sabotaged. And it becomes a gripe session. And for the employee, it's a very an event that causes a lot of shame and
Yeah.
unhappiness.
Can I ask two things real quickly?
Yes.
If you're meeting ad hoc once a quarter,
Uh-huh.
Khalil once a day, how do you
Once a
do you
day.
record that? Well, a week.
Once a
Sorry.
week.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it's
once a
there
week.
are high points where that person has done a really good job on something. You want to make a note of that. If there are things that you want to talk to them about, processes that need improvement or behaviors that need some adjustment, just making a little note of that. It can just be in a timeline so that when you do get to that annual evaluation, you have all the highs and the lows that you truly evaluate with the goal of looking forward and how they can continue to build and how you can continue to support them. So there's a methodology to it. Um, I know if you have folks out in the field, you may not be able to meet with them every week. That's why I said maybe monthly. And you could go out to the job sites and check with them where they're at. And so I think it's being intentional without it being stiff and formal.
I love that you're talking about these evaluations, and I'm a huge advocate of one-on-ones on a regular basis and even team meetings on a regular basis. But there are some things in the lens that I had previously of an evaluation versus what you're describing as an evaluation that are still beneficial to have a formal conversation, to discuss compensation, to highlight key improvements that were made to, so if we're how do how do we still do some of those formal things that are valuable but maybe just approached with the incorrect approach, I guess.
I think it's through the goal setting. If
Hmm.
your employee's asking for more compensation, I think it's a perfect time to visit with them about being realistic about what their expectations are and what the market dictates. And based on each company has their own compensation philosophy and where they will pay within an appropriate range of all their competition locally. And most often it's based on what they can afford. And so, being honest with employees about where they pay at the range and why they're paying that brings a lot of clarity. And I, for one, understand that there are a lot of employees out there that don't have to work for a company that pays the highest amount dollar wise. If they feel valued, if they feel like they're a contributor, they feel heard, and they're in a great environment with a wonderful culture. And so there's a lot that goes into that overall compensation package that adds to it that has nothing to do with money.
Yeah, absolutely. And, feeling valued because you're getting feedback regularly and you're getting investment from the boss on a regular basis is one of those things that is part of the compensation, I guess you could say, or part of the benefits.
Absolutely.
For
And
someone
not
in a
just
role.
getting feedback, but giving feedback to the boss and seeing that your ideas and your thoughts are so valued that they're taking action upon them.
Yeah, that's the bottleneck
Yeah,
that you're
that builds a
mentioning.
loyalty that money can't buy.